So I actually just got myself a modded Mega Drive, and I actually spent all weekend playing on it, which is quite rare these days to actually have that much time to dedicate to playing on a retro system like this. But I had such a fantastic time, and it brought back so many great memories of playing some of my childhood favourites, as well as loads of other games that I've picked up over the years in a brand new way using this system. So in this video I wanted to share with you all some of the advantages that having a modded system over an original like this is the one that I grew up with. So I just wanted to come here and share a few of my experiences with the modded system, what you can expect if you want to get one for yourselves, how it improves the gaming experience, and a few other neat little extra features that this one has over a regular modded system too. So with that said, let's get started. So before we get into some of the games that I played on it and some of the interesting things that I've found, let me first explain what this system can actually do over and above a regular Mega Drive in the UK. So the main thing is 50 and 60 Hz, and in America the games ran at full speed of course, but here in the UK a lot of the time if the developers didn't optimise the code, the games here actually ran about 16% slower. But thanks to the inclusion of this switch, I can instantly play some of my favourite Mega Drive classics at 16% faster speeds, which at first is a lot to get used to and it really doesn't feel right at all. But considering I've been playing on emulators for years and I've played the American version of some of these games, it is how they were supposed to be played, and I'm so happy that I can finally do that on original hardware. And it's a really nice implementation with this as well. All you have to do is hold down the reset button and wait for the power light to change colour, and then when you let go, it instantly flicks from 50 to 60. Some games don't support 60 straight away. Some of them will either come up with an error screen telling you that it's not compatible with that region of console, or they may just freeze on the title screen itself. So what you need to do in that situation is start the game up in 50 Hz, and then once you're actually into the game, or once you're actually on the title screen, then you can hold the reset button down and then refresh it into 60. And pretty much for the vast majority of games that I've tested so far, they all run absolutely flawlessly. And another great thing about 60 compared to 50 is that you don't get the letterboxed black bars at the top and the bottom of the screen either, which is fantastic because a lot of the games on the original Mega Drive actually cut off the top and the bottom of the display on a PAL system. So even playing it on the CRT made a huge difference just from being able to switch the games from 50 to 60 Hz. There's actually more to it than that though. There's actually a secret switch on the back here, which I was not even expecting, so to be able to have this option as well is just the icing on the cake. So this is what I'm calling the blast processing switch. But actually what it does is a slight overclock of the CPU, meaning that when this switch is turned on, some games will actually run faster than they're intending to. Not in terms of frame rate, but in terms of actually how much power can get to the system. So it actually reduces slowdown in a lot of situations where the game would regularly slow down on a normal system. In most cases, this is fantastic, especially for shoot 'em ups on the system. Being able to play games at completely smooth frame rates all the way through the game, no matter how many sprites are on the screen, is brilliant. But there was a few times that I tried this out and it completely broke the game. Take for example the game Virtua Racing here, which is a game that came on a very special cartridge with an SVP chip inside. It was basically Sega's answer to the Super FX chip on the SNES, meaning that the game could actually display 3D polygons and run them at a kind of stable frame rate. But with that overclock boost engaged, the game is just unbelievably fast and it's basically uncontrollable. And pairing that boost mode with the 60 Hz edition on that system basically turned Virtua Racing into an F-Zero game on the Mega Drive. It was basically uncontrollable and I just flew around the course, crashing into the sides. But it was a great example of what that switch actually does, so it was really interesting to see. Unfortunately as well, Virtua Racing was a game where the 60 Hz mode doesn't quite work as intended. The top part of the screen was kind of glitchy, but this was one of the games that I believe, at least, was actually made with 50 Hz in mind for the PAL territory. And surprisingly, there's not a specific list of games that were 50 Hz optimised here in the UK. If you know of any, please let me know down in the comments below, because I had this conversation over on Twitter and people were basically saying that yeah, it's still kind of a grey area in the retro gaming scene. So if anyone has a definitive list of PAL games that were optimised for 50Hz, please let me know and I would love to try them out on this system that I've got. And maybe I could make a video in the future, a definitive list of 50Hz optimised Mega Drive games. Let me know if you think that would be something you'd be interested in. I was genuinely surprised at just how much more enjoyable the games were thanks to the mods on this system. I was really confused as well, because some games, like Battle Squadron that I've got here, I thought this game was made in the UK, or at least in Europe, and for the longest time I'd been convinced that I was playing this at full speed. But since switching it to 60Hz and having a look at some videos on YouTube to see what is the correct speed, I'd actually been playing it a lot slower than what the game was supposed to be, and I'm just blown away that games like this that I've been playing for years and years are actually meant to be experienced completely differently. And since getting the mod, games like this, games like Truxton as well, that was another game that I thought I'd been playing at full speed all these years. Shoot 'em ups in particular with this mod just take on a whole new life of their own, and it really has brought me just a brand new sense of enjoyment and appreciation for these games, especially Truxton. It went from kind of a slow-paced game which I just chalked up to being the Mega Drive's version of Raiden and nothing more, to a completely over-the-top action-packed shoot 'em up that's fast become one of my favourite games on the entire system. And if it wasn't for me picking this mod up, I would have just written this game off as just another generic shooter for the system, but it's so much more than that. And it wasn't just shoot 'em ups that I thought I'd been playing right all along, it's also platformers like Sparkster and Rocket Knight. Two of my favourite games of all time, and I've been playing them wrong this whole time as well. Especially with Sparkster, when I flicked that switch and put it in 60Hz, I was really confused at first. It felt wrong. I actually had to once again look it up on YouTube to see whether it was the correct speed or whether it was actually running too fast. Which is kind of a problem with some of these UK games, because the music was sped up to match the proper pitch and the proper frequency of the music, but the gameplay was still slowed down, and that was the case with Sparkster. And it took me quite a while to actually get used to the faster gameplay. It almost felt like the jump physics were broken, but I'd actually been playing them wrong in the first place. So I was used to it being kind of a floaty game, and the jetpack in Sparkster in particular being really forgiving. But once I flicked that switch, then it just came crashing down, and a game that I thought was already challenging enough now proves to be almost impossible. So I'm going to have to get a lot more playtime into Sparkster if I want to be able to complete it now. So with Sonic 1, the game was not optimised for PAL systems whatsoever. It's probably one of the worst examples of it actually, and it's a big reason why I didn't really think there was much of a difference between Sonic and Mario back in the day. Just take a look at this gameplay from the 50Hz version of Sonic 1 and see how slow it is, how pedestrian it looks. It just looks like any old average platformer for the system. Now, when it goes into 60Hz, just look at the insane difference that it makes. And now compare that to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. So Sonic 3 and Knuckles is kind of a weird one. I did come here to say that there was a slight difference between the 50 and 60Hz versions, but there's even more weird stuff going on than that. As you can see, Sonic 3 on its own does not boot up at all if you start it in 60Hz mode, but Sonic 3 and Knuckles combined actually does boot up. So I started playing it thinking, yeah, this is exactly how it should look, and then randomly at some point in the first level it will just reset back to the Sega logo and reset back to the title screen. So what I tried then was to boot the game up in 50Hz, which kind of runs at full speed, as you can see, and then once I got into the game itself, then I tried switching it into 60, which really didn't work at all. I was expecting it just to fill the screen like some of the other games that I'd tested, but instead this one actually got really glitchy, the frame rate got all messed up, and even the bonus stage was really broken. And it actually looks smoother on the recording in this video than it did in real life, which is really strange. And that's why it's been so challenging to actually find out what's going on with this 50 and 60 Hz mode in certain games like this one. And that is why I think it's so difficult to find a list of games that are completely optimized for PAL. So like I said earlier, please let me know down in the comments if you have an actual list or if you know of any examples that I can test out. Another game that really threw me off with this mod was Phantasy Star 2. And the reason being that I actually played most of this game on the Wii Virtual Console, and it wasn't until a few years after the Virtual Console that I actually found out that here in the UK they were actually 50Hz versions of the games, not 60Hz like America and Japan got, even in the digital age, which is just insane to me. But even so, I am so used to playing this game in 50Hz that when I flicked the switch and put this one into 60, it actually sped up the music unlike some of the other games, and it just sounds completely wrong to me. Like, I'm so used to playing this game, I used to play it for hours and hours and hours back on the Wii, and it just doesn't feel right at all playing in 60, even though that is the official way to play the game. So there's a few examples like that where maybe I actually do prefer the 50Hz version, especially with RPGs which don't really need the increased speed. Just check out the difference in the song on this first town here, especially the drum percussion bit in the middle. I really loved it on the 50Hz version, but it just sounds too fast in 60. So in this particular situation, I was actually right in thinking that the 60Hz version there was running too fast, even compared to what it should be on the American system. And the way around it was actually to boot the game up in 60Hz by default, rather than switching for 50 to 60 while the game was actually playing. So this is what it's actually supposed to look and sound like. There is one other thing with this mod which I haven't touched on yet, and that is the fact that it's also region free, which is kind of technically a modification, but it's not an internal modification, because if you didn't know, the Mega Drive, so this Mega Drive 2 that I've got here, is actually able to play Japanese games, but the thing is, they don't fit in the cartridge slot. So, I know I do regret doing this now, but if you take a look at the cartridge slot there, you can see that I actually cut out a bit around the side, and that was actually to allow the Japanese games to fit in the European system. So if you compare a PAL Mega Drive game at the bottom to a Japanese one, you can see that the Japanese one has an extra bit on the side that's not present on the UK, and that means that it doesn't quite fit inside the system. So there's two things you can do. You can either unscrew the cartridge and take the PCB out and put it in the system that way, or you can do what I did and cut around the cartridge enclosure. But of course, playing it on that Mega Drive 2 would still play it slower than it's meant to be. But with this mod here, they actually did a really nice job of widening the cartridge slot, so much so that I didn't even notice at first, and I was really surprised to find that the Japanese games literally just slot in like that, no problem whatsoever. But I did look closely, and they're very carefully rounded off the edges, so you really can't tell. Look how snug of a fit that is. It almost looks completely official, so I was really happy about that. I haven't really got that many Japanese Mega Drive games, but of course now that Japan's opening its borders again, I'm so excited to go back there and pick up some more games for my collection. I've actually only got 5 Japanese Mega Drive games. I've got Crackdown, Monster World 3, Monster World 4, as you just saw there, a really cool shoot 'em up called Gynoog, or Gynog, which I actually did a video on about 10 years ago now, so if you are curious to see what this one's like, although I don't recommend going and watching my old videos, that option is there. And finally, I've got Pulseman as well, which of course is really famous for being one of the games that Game Freak worked on before they started making Pokemon, so that is a really interesting game. But please let me know down in the comments, what other Japanese Mega Drive games should I try and track down that that never came out overseas, and that don't really have that much of a language barrier either. Now that I've got a really good way of playing them, it'll be great to check some more out. And I do actually have a Mega Overdrive turning up very soon as well. So I know I'm telling you guys to go in the comments all the time in this video, but please let me know what Homebrew and what ROM hacks do you recommend as well, because I'm planning to do a video on that now that I've got this modded system too and an Overdrive. I really think that is the perfect combination. So why did I go for a modded Mega Drive 1 over a Mega Drive Model 2? Well, although I said I grew up with this one, I did originally have a Model 1, but I believe it was just another family member's because we got rid of it soon after, and then I picked this one up at a boot sale probably in the early 2000s, and between that time I didn't really have a Mega Drive at all, and in fact the only way I'd been playing them was thanks to emulators. So that's another reason why I'm kind of used to playing them in 60Hz rather than 50. So when I did get this one in the early 2000s, it was quite difficult to go back to, and I've never properly enjoyed playing the Mega Drive since then. So since I got this system, I am just on a Mega Drive binge at the minute, and I'm really excited to pick up some more games that I missed out on back in the day that I really enjoyed playing on emulators. So I'm just going to do a quick scan of my shelves behind me so you can see the games that I've already got, and please let me know down in the comments below what other games you think I should pick up for the system. I've got a few on my wish list, but I really want to try and get more, and I am off to Play Expo Blackpool this weekend, and I'm hoping to find some more games there, so leave your comments down below, and fingers crossed I might be able to pick up one or two of the games while I'm at the event. So I really hope you enjoyed this quick look at my brand new modded Mega Drive. I am so excited to check out some more games on this system and to do some more Mega Drive shopping like I said earlier on. So thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video and you want to support me financially, you can go ahead and check out Patreon in the description below. I haven't had many new members recently, so if you want to get your name going across the bottom of the screen to join everyone else here, then please go ahead and do that. I'm going to try and get better at doing more behind the scenes stuff over there too. And like I said, I've never really done many videos on the Mega Drive before, so I don't really have any video in particular to send you to like I normally do. So just go ahead and enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your time on YouTube. Goodbye.